Hey everybody, welcome to the Golf Gypsy Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Fazio. As you can see, we're missing a couple of our co-hosts today, so I'm going to be doing this one solo. Today we have a very, very special guest. We're going to discuss the mental health or the mental aspects of golf. We got Kyle Holden from Feel Under Par on the show today. Looks like he's waiting in the waiting room. Let's go ahead and let him in. Kyle.
Hey, Joe, how are you?
What's up, buddy? How are you?
Good, man. Good. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure, man. My pleasure. So how did you get into the whole mental aspect of the golf game? Because I got a story.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So it's a very untraditional path into the golf industry, if you will, because I started out as anybody else, played golf for most of my life. I was never that good. I didn't even make it into my high school team or anything like that. I didn't play in college. I'm not a PGA guy. I don't have any of that prestige or anything. But I knew golf was always a passion for me. And for the longest time, I was very similar to people I see on Instagram where let me see these swing thoughts that people are having, and let me try this new tip that I'm seeing on Instagram. And you're just so flooded by everything that you see on Instagram or YouTube or whatever it is. And, I remember having subscriptions to I won't name the names, but some of these things that they'll send you videos every week on new things to try and stuff like that. So it just became my swing became very robotic, and I wasn't enjoying golf anymore. I wasn't playing the game of golf anymore. And I had a full, corporate job at the time, and I was in the training and development space. So I've always had this headspace of improving people in some way, having them be more efficient in the thing that they're trying to do. And part of my job was to actually do leadership coaching, which, funny enough, coaching is coaching. So a lot of those skills just play really nicely into both realms. So it's finding the thing that that person wants to do and just enabling them to do it better, and knowing that they have the skill to do it and getting them to get there. And so I was doing that leadership coaching for a while, and I just said, I can't do this anymore. It's not the thing I'm passionate about. Props to all the people that can work a corporate life and be happy. I just couldn't do it. So I was I need to get out. So I left, started my own coaching business a little over a year ago. And because I got into reading these books about the mental game. So the Inner Game of Golf was the first book that I read that just really introduced me to what this could even be. And then I just started taking in all this knowledge. I was watching all these videos and reading all these books about it, Be a Player by Pia Nielsen and Lynn Marriott. And even The Four Fundamentals of Golf by John Sherman, and that's not even just a mental game thing. It's how to be more practical when you're playing golf and all that stuff. And I was soaking this all in, and I was I got better really immediately. I was enjoying the game more. My swing was more free. And I was oh, if I can do this, I know I can help other people do it. And so I put together this journey and what I call the blueprint for people to be better. And we just individualize that blueprint for everybody that I work with, because it's the same sort of foundations, but it's not always the same solution, if you will. So that's how I got into all this. And it's been a wild ride and a fun journey. And it brings me, just like you said, that feeling when you get somebody to go from 200 to 215, that feeling of intrinsic value you get. That's exactly what I feel when one of my coaches the client I'm working with texted me the other day, and he was dude, I haven't felt any pressure this past round that I was playing, and that fills me with joy, because it's wow, he did it, he unlocked the thing that's been helping him play better, and then he just scored his best round. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember it was pretty recently. I was struggling with during a round, and it was just one of those days where you're hitting everything fat, or you're hitting everything thin. You're sculling shots. You have the yips pop up, and then I got up to, a tee box, and I remember I wasn't thinking about anything, and I striped it down the center of the fairway. And my buddy's like, "What did you do?" And I was like, and he's like, "What were you?"
Absolutely nothing.
And he's like, "Nothing." I was like, "Nothing." He's like, "What were you thinking about?" I'm like, "Nothing." Literally nothing. I didn't have like, hey, shift the weight, make sure this, like it puts with this and comes down here. And I just crushed it. And I was just like, now I got to figure out how I can bottle that up.
Yeah.
And put it in my back pocket and use it because like last week I played 3 rounds of golf when I was in Southern Virginia. And the first day was okay. It wasn't great, but it wasn't horrible. And I played with one of my reps at night. We just went out for a quick 9, and he kept telling me, he's like, slow down your swing, slow down this. And I played like probably the best 9 holes of my life until I don't know if you guys saw the last like reel that I posted about, like that was so dumb, where it's like, I'm playing lights out golf, probably the best I've ever. I think I was 3 over par on the front 9. I was 3 over.
Amazing.
And I get to the par 5, 9th hole par 5, and I decide to go for the green. And
of course,
and I chunked the 3-wood right into the trees. And then it was like, 2 shots to get onto the green. And then I 2-putted for a bogey. And I was just like, this is dumb. I should have just laid up like just gotten it back into play and this and that. And I know that there's a tremendous mental side to the game that I think us as amateurs find. I think for me, and I could probably speak for all the listeners, that's the hardest part to get. Like, it's easy to go sit there and smash balls into,
exactly.
Get your swing path, make sure your weight's shifted.
Because you can see it.
You're right. But when you get out on a course, like one of the things that I struggle with is that when I go to play around and I'm warming up, I'm striping them, putting them wherever I want to. The second there's water in front of me, or you've got trees and a narrow target that you're into, it's all of a sudden like the whole game falls apart. What can you talk on something like that? Yeah,
so that's a really good point, because that's very common, as it's understandably so. Because, they build golf courses to make us feel that way. It's, if they wanted it to feel easy, they wouldn't put water in front of us. So even to that point, it's all about the thing. And this is like, I'll just give away the secret. Like, it's all about your process. Like if you have a process that you can control, that you do every single swing, no matter what happens, you can go back to that process. So even if you, let's say you hit it into the water, and it happens. Like, there's bad shots. You can, even if you have the most perfect swing, we've seen Tiger hit into the water. Everybody hits it into the water sometimes. You can't control that. But what you can do is, instead of on that next shot thinking about that water again, or being like, now I have to get up and down to make a bogey or whatever, you just go back to your process and you say, okay, I'm going to, think about my target, feel exactly what I want that to feel like, that shot I want to take. Or some people have the feel part of there's 3 parts of your process: that think, feel, and do. And so the think part is the part that we're all really good at, because we all overanalyze stuff anyway. So we're always thinking about stuff. So it's like, okay, I know I need to think about my target. Now another part is picking the right target, not always pin hunting and things like that. Let's say you pick your target, it's a good target. Now you either feel your shot, how you actually want it to feel like with your movements, or like what I tend to do is I look at my target and imagine the ball like flying to the target, whether it be a fade, most of the time a fade, because that's what I'll hit. And then I'll bring my target really close to me. So like usually 2 or 3 feet in front of the ball, I'll find a spot on the ground. And I know this isn't like groundbreaking stuff. I know a lot of people talk about this. Find a spot in the ground and look at that and use that as your target. And that's what I'll do. And so I pick out that spot. And then as soon as I get up to the ball, I look at the ground and I say that there's an imaginary line on the ground. And as soon as I cross that, no more swing thoughts are happening. There's no more thinking about the target or anything like that. And then I walk up and I react to the ball. And that's the biggest thing is, I can't remember who wrote about this, but it's so true that all these other sports like baseball, you're reacting to a ball being thrown to you. You have to swing. You can't think about your swing in that moment. You just have to do it, or catching it or whatever. If you're throwing the ball, you're still reacting. In golf, we get this burden of time where you can stand over it as long as you want when, in a range of time, but you get a long time to just stand and think, and our minds will race if we allow them to. And so if you just get up to that ball and react to that shot that you want to take, you're more than likely going to hit a better shot than a worse shot. So that's what I always tell people to come back to. And part of the program that I run is like building that process for them. And as simple as that sounds, it's not easy because it's a new habit to build.
Yeah, well, you're hitting at basically a stationary object, and this is the only sport where you do that. Like as you said, that ball is not moving; it's not going anywhere. All you have to do is stand over it and hit it. Where they say, like when you go to throw a ball, you're not thinking like, okay, I have to make sure that I turn my shoulders.
That's exactly right.
Shift my weight. You just pick up this ball and you throw it, and you don't even think about it. And that I think is the hardest thing to get down, because I've gotten to the point where I kind of like to get some motion. So like if I'm standing over the ball, I'm moving a lot and
that's okay. Yeah. And that's fine.
Right before I start taking the club away, I want to make sure that I feel like I hit it better when I'm actually physically moving. Instead of getting stuck and just, standing there looking over the ball. And then that's when like the thoughts start racing.
I was going to say, it sounds like you have a trigger to start your swing, and that's amazing. I actually found a trigger for myself recently is, I wasn't having as much dynamic loft when like I was coming down on the ball. So like it wasn't coming up. So what I would do is my trigger now is to start the swing, I just kind of flick my wrist forward and then start going back. And that just helps to not have, like you're saying, like being stagnant and being like, okay, when do I start?
Right. It's not like Matt Wolf's where, like he basically he has that little
little twitch,
that little bop, and then he takes it up here and, and hits it. But yeah. So what's like define, I know you kind of touched upon the process a little bit, but without giving it away for free, obviously, you have to, you have to make a little money doing this, and, your time is worth it. What's part of the process? So if say, a listener like had reached out to you and they say, hey, I'm interested in learning more. I'm interested in joining up. What kind of process would you take them through to get them playing better mental golf?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the first thing we do is having a call similar to this, in a way where I get on, I try to understand what barriers they're running into, what their normal golf game looks like right now, the goals they're trying to hit, and that just helps me understand them a little better. But let's say they're like, okay, I'm in. I explain the program to them. They're into it. They want to do it. The first thing we do is I give them an assessment, and it's just a little bit more of a breakdown of their inner workings, their inner thinkings, and they have to answer the questions a few times before they submit it to me. And because what that does is it helps them sort of think about the things that come very quickly, like the surface questions that come up very quickly. And then it's like, oh, well, why do I think that about my swing or my game or whatever it is? Because the first thing we attack is limiting beliefs, like the gremlin on your shoulder that you feel. It's like, a couple guys that I have been working with are like really worried about the expectations of or what other people will think of them if they hit a bad shot. And it's like, before you can really play better, you have to tackle those kinds of things and understand that that's what we have to get over. Because you can have a process and whatnot, but as soon as you hit a shitty shot, because they're going to happen, you might collapse and like mentally collapse. So we have to understand, like, what are those things that are going to make you mentally collapse? And then we start building that in more. And then the next few weeks are really about building that process, working through course management, what that looks like, what that feels like, and then just practicing and getting those things down. Because the people think coaching is like this part where we're talking, they think that's like where all the magic happens. it almost is like a primer to where the magic happens, because I'll be talking to you, we go through some stuff, you take some action, and then we talk about some actions, and then you go out and play, and you either try the stuff or you don't, and then it's like you come back and you talk about it, and you're like, oh, that's why this worked for me, and I really wish I did this instead, and that I really enjoyed that process, but I found that when I hit it into the sand, I just couldn't get back to it, and so there's all these like learnings that happen while in between the sessions, that then they come back to me and we talk about that stuff to then narrow down, like, okay, so we need to do XYZ now. And the big like aha moment, or the big thing that they work through, is this idea of being an A, B, and C gamer. And so most of the time, I don't know if you're familiar with statistics at all, but the bell curve, that most of the time, 70% of the stuff you're doing is going to be in this what I call the B game, which is your standard game. There's going to be good shots, there's going to be bad shots, and whatnot. And then, like you were saying before, you have those days where you're fatting everything and you're thinning everything, and you get the yips, and that's your C game. And so, like, what's coming out in your C game, and then what's your A game look like? And what we're trying to do is, when you're in your C game, you notice that, and you start implementing things from your B game a little bit more into your C game, so that pulls you out of that, that really crappy round. Or if you're in your A game, and in a lot of, it's funny when you're in your A game, people are like, oh, I need to stay everything in the A game. But the problem is, one of the big things people deal with is pressure when they're playing their A game, because they're like, okay, I'm coming down the stretch. I'm only 5 over, and I could be breaking 80 right now. And then they collapse in the last 4 holes because they're thinking, I have to do XYZ to get there. And then they start overthinking. So it's like, what from your B game can you really pull into your A game to keep yourself grounded and not get too into your head?
Yeah, I actually, you said something really funny that kind of connected with. I remember, I think it was last summer, we were playing around the golf, and I wasn't paying attention to anything. Like, I wasn't, I use Arcos, so I'm not constantly looking at my score.
Same.
And what happened was we were through 5 holes, and my buddy goes to me, he's like, dude, do you realize you're even through these 5 holes?
Dude.
And I'm
he ruined you.
Oh, what are you doing? And I'm like, bro, do you know you just, and literally on the next hole, I think I doubled par, because it just, now I'm thinking, so
exactly.
So all of a sudden now I'm 4 over instead of just, instead of just moving. And that was probably one of the worst things that ever happened, because I wasn't paying attention. I'm just like, hit the ball, and we play. So up here, we're very impatient, which, if you're from up here.
For sure.
We move, no
Patrick Cantlay's on the course.
No, by all means. We move, and we play fast. So it's not 10 practice swings. It's like, get up to the ball, grip it and rip it, and move on. That's it. Hit it. And it totally destroyed the rest of the round for me.
Yeah.
And then this, over the winter, I was listening to the Par Train podcast, and they had some mental golf game expert on, and they had suggested playing from the red tees.
Yeah.
So what we did was over winter break, we got out there. It was like 33 degrees, and we were playing with a buddy of mine who maybe plays twice a year. So I suggested, I'm like, hey guys, let's play from the red tees. It's super cold. We're all going to lose distance anyway, and it's cold. And I said, I heard, I told them about the podcast that I heard and whatnot. So this time we got to the 9th hole. I was 1 under par. And
amazing.
He was 1 under par. And we both kind of like said, dude, we're 1 under. This is incredible. We ended up playing because I think we had a different mindset, and it was like who cares what happens? Like, who cares how the round goes? It's an experiment. Let's try it. But we were literally, it was like driver, wedge, 3-wood wedge, and I have the like in my game, like one of my favorite clubs to hit is my 58, because I could put it wherever I want. So as long as I was getting to that 58, I knew I could put it to a couple of feet from the pin, and I was going to either par it or birdie it. I had one blow up hole on a par 3, but that's another story. But I ended up playing. I think he was 3 under par. I was 2 under par because I got a bogey on that par 3.
Wow, you finished it, and this was like par 72 course.
Yep. It's one of our harder courses, in Monmouth County. That you play this during the summer. You got fescue that's 4 feet high. If you're not in the fairway, you're done. And it was one of those things that it kind of gets you into, like, it gets you accustomed to being under par, and it gets your mind where you're used to it. Where that time when I was even, I'm not used to being even after 5 holes. I'm used to being 5 over or whatever. If you're playing bogey golf, like you're 3, 4, 5 over par. And that destroyed my game. But this kind of gets you used to it, where you're just like, all right, instead of it being 6,700 yards, it's 6,000 yards. Yeah. And you're like, all right, I can get through this. Even if I'm 1 under, that's huge. I've never played 1 under.
I mean, that's amazing. So I was going to say, what changed from your mindset from that round where you ended up playing, 2 under or what have you from the Reds? Like,
it was knowing, for me, for like my standpoint, it kind of exposed my weakness with my mid to long irons. That's what it did, because if I was from pitching wedge down, like after on my approach shot, I think I had the highest, GIR or GIR that I've ever, I've ever had, I've ever played. We call it GIRs. It's like, oh, I got a GIR.
Love it.
But like it was the highest, GIR that greens and regulations that I've ever played, because I know where the ball's going to go. And like, say from 6, 7, 4, like from 4 to 7, I can go either way. It's either I'm coming up short or I'm overfading it.
And that's generally, I mean, even professionals, because they can bomb it, they're not taking a lot of like high irons and hybrids and whatnot. Like, they're rarely using those clubs, and it's because they're generally harder. We're not all hitting them a lot.
Well, I realized that, 7, 6, there was a point that my 6 iron was like, as long as I would try to get myself into 6 iron distance, like on a long par 5 or like a long par 4. And then it switched where I got really good with my 5 iron, but my 6 iron was struggling. So I'd have to hit like a 75% 5 iron. It bounces. And I think that's the inconsistency that we go through a lot of the times, is that, I'll get really tight with the longer irons, and then it bounces from iron to iron, and then I lose confidence in altogether. But like, the consistency stays with the wedges. The wedges are usually, like 8 down. I know where I'm going to put it. I know the distances, but it flip flops. You know what I mean?
Why is that for those shorter clubs for you? Because I know some people have a hard time with shorter clubs. Like, for you, why are they easier and can put it where you want it?
To be honest with you, I think it's the shafts that I have in mind. I use the AMT, which is the ascending mass technology from True Temper. And so as you go through, like, so say your 4 iron all the way to your gap wedge, it's 3 grams. I think it's like 3 grams heavier for every shaft. So your 4 iron is lighter than your gap wedge. So it gets heavy. The shaft gets heavier. So I had no idea. I think with a heavier club or a more consistent club, I just feel like more control, where like my wedges are, I guess with they're S400. So they're like 120s or 130s, something like that.
So you're saying you think you feel the club more through the swing?
I have, yeah.
And like, so you're like aware of where it is through the entire swing?
I know where it is. I know how it feels. I know that I can kind of go for it a little bit, a little bit harder if I have to, or softer. I can control it a little bit better. That's what I think it is. Where I find myself, if I swing slower with my longer irons, I hit it farther, which doesn't make sense. Like it just doesn't compute. Like where
I'm betting it's because of just better contact, like more center of the face contact.
Of course, that's what it is. But
it has to be it.
But it's just like, hey, why do people flip a club, right? You flip a club because you're getting stuck, but your brain in that split second is telling your body that club face isn't square. So to square it up, you're doing this to get it square. Because in that millisecond in time, your brain's triggering you to like, all right, your body's not moving. We have to square it up. And that's why.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, you get it, like the brain is incomprehensibly like better than we can consciously think of it, because I think that's where a lot of people get caught up, is like you were saying before, you're working through these, movements, and you're like, okay, here I got to be here, and then I got to like move my hip and all this stuff, and the club head's got to do this through the swing, and it's like the swing is at most 2 seconds, at most 2 seconds long from backswing to downswing. So it's like, how do you think you can control this thing through the swing?
It's well, that's when you start thinking about it, or you watch golf on television, and I don't know if the listener has a net in their backyard, but I'll see things, or I'll watch a video. I'm like, I'm going to go try.
Yeah.
And it's just like when you get out, when I go outside, I can feasibly say, okay, I'm going to do a 3/4 swing, or what feels like a 3/4 swing, where it's stop here. And then next thing you know, okay, that's a 3/4 swing, and you get that great contact. You hit the center of the club face, and if you have like some type of simulator or monitor, then like, all right, I'm hitting this far. And then you go out to the golf course and you try to do those same mechanics that you did in front of your net with the simulator, and it never faults, because now you're bringing in all these other variables that get stuck in your head. And that's
exactly
the win.
Well, that's like, and I know people like, I know I kind of shit on like golf mechanic stuff, like swing stuff, but at the same time, I get the usefulness of it in the right context. So like, if you're going to do that stuff on the range, or like at a net or whatever, to maybe work on your swing, maybe you're changing your swing for whatever reason you need to, do that on the range. But as soon as you go on the course, like, you can't bring that with you, because you can't swing like that. Like, I saw a video the other day, I made a reel about it, where it was like DJ's swing, I think it was DJ's swing, and it had like it was Brooks's swing, it had like 6 different points that it was talking about. And I was like, yeah, that's cool and all that, his swing is like that, but like, you cannot emulate that. You can't, as you're taking the club back, you can't stop. Like, that's the beautiful thing about videos, is you could stop it and say like, this is what's happening. Right. You can't do that when you're playing.
No. And I've made that error, or, you'll be on you're playing with some new people that you just met or whatever, and they ask you like, hey, what's wrong with my swing? It's like, dude, this is not the right time to talk about your swing. Just keep swinging your swing, and that's it. Just swing your swing. Like, there's no
exactly.
Yeah, you can't do that. But I found like, what are your thoughts on this? Like, you play around a golf, right? And you have a decent day, you shoot in the 80s or whatever. And, you get some time, and this happens to me all the time, where, you get off the course and you're like, I'm going to go to a range real quick and work out on some things. And all of a sudden you pick up that club that on the course all day was giving you hell. And all of a sudden, I can't tell you how many times it's happened with like, and it could be just like we'll say a 9-iron, because that's the last club that it actually did that to me, where I was struggling. Like, I was hitting it thin, I was hitting it fat. Go to the range afterwards, and I literally put it within, like, say, a 5-yard radius in the same distance, same spot, over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Like, talk to me about that, like that psychology where, you're struggling with something, but then you get off, and then all of a sudden you're able to do what you were trying to do hours before.
Yeah. So my perception of that, just from this quick anecdote you gave, is the pressure of the course versus there's no pressure when you're at the range anymore. Like, you're just there, you're swinging free. You may or may not even be thinking about anything. You're just like, oh, I know, like, I was having trouble with this. Like, let me just go whack some balls. And now you're just letting your swing happen. Like you said, you're swinging your swing, and it's just coming together. But as soon as you go on the course, you're like, I have to hit this 9-iron to this spot. And so you're putting all this pressure on you. People forget how much pressure really comes into play, even if you're not playing for anything, because you're playing for your own pride,
So your course, do you teach your clients how to take that freedom that you get on the range and bring it to the course?
Yes and no. So, because some people have trouble on the range, and because they are so worried about how they're going to play on the course, so they freak out about the range. But the idea is, how do you manage the pressure that you are feeling on the course, whether it is at the range or if it's at home? That's the thing, is like, it's so individualized, because some people like to meditate, as silly as it might sound to some people. Like, that's what helps them, is they do some breathing before they go play, or even having a few breaths to take before you take your shot. Like, that's their trigger, is having some breaths. It really comes down to, where does that trigger for the pressure happen, and how can we bring you to something you can control? Because people try to control the swing, and the swing is really uncontrollable when it comes down to it. So, again, like, a lot of that comes back to the process and picking the right targets and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. No, that definitely makes sense. What about but would you, like, for me, when I'm talking about, like, when I'm trying to think about this, like, because when it comes to golf, I'm a head case.
Yeah, I hear that from a lot of people. Trust me.
I'm a head case. Like, I'm the guy who, when we're on the first tee box, I want to tee off last. I want to go last. And even if, whether I bomb it or I top it, whatever it is, I don't care. I want to go last. It's just kind of like.
Why is that? Like, what are you afraid of going first?
Like, for me, people watching me doesn't bother me. I'm not that, like, I can shut everything out around me. I don't I'm fine. Like, you want to talk in my backswing, it doesn't bother me. It's just one of those things. I think when you're playing with new players, for example, I kind of want to get a feel for who I'm playing with, because now it's like, I've got, like, all right, if I'm playing with, it's almost like if I'm playing with like 30 handicaps or 40 handicaps, that stress level comes down, and then I don't swing for the fences. But then if you're playing with, like, good players, scratch 5 handicaps, then it's like, psychologically, like, I'll watch them bomb it 300 yards in the middle. It's like, oh man, like, and that's why it's like,
so I was going to say, you're one of those where I'm worried about what other people think of your game.
I'm very competitive too, so when it comes down to that, it's like, I like to be, I don't want to be the shortest guy in the group. I don't want to be, I don't want to be the highest scorer in the group, so that's why it's like, I kind of like to judge the players, because, like, here, being a fitter, right? And I told this story today. In the 3 years that I've been doing this, there's been one time that somebody comes up to you and says, I hit the ball 300 yards. Usually we're like, yeah, okay. Or it's the same thing with, like, oh, I need an extra stiff shaft. You swing 70 miles an hour.
Right. Sure you do.
And this one guy, very unassuming, I think it was 2 years ago, he came up and he's like, I hit it 300.
Looking like Matt Fitzpatrick or something.
No, he didn't look like Matt Fitzpatrick at all. And he gets on the track, man, and ball after ball after ball was like 299, 305, this and that. It's like the first and only time this has happened.
Yeah.
And he wasn't like a club pro, wasn't club champion. And he'll turn around and tell you, he's like, I can't hit my irons for my life. I can't putt and I can't chip. So he's like, I'm really good in scrambles. So.
You're right.
Right. So I'm like, why are you part of a golf country club? I don't get, But it was one time that happened. Every other time, like, you talk to these guys, oh, I'm a 5 handicap. And then you see them play. There's no way, in heck, you're a 5 handicap. Like, you're like a 25.
And this is while they're playing, or during club fitting?
No, this is while we're playing. So that's why I usually you can get a feel for like the quality of players you're playing with. Cause I play a lot of we'll call it customer golf, where, I just meet these people and it literally, I just kind of want to get a feel for where I am on the, where I'm going to be for the day. And that's where that kind of starts the whole process, because now I'm focused on, okay, you're playing customer golf with customers. You also want to impress them. You want them to think like, oh, Joe, he's a great golfer, or he bombs the ball, or whatever.
So I was going to say, do you want to impress them? Would you rather impress them with like how far you hit it or how well you score?
A little bit of both. A little bit of both. Like that's it. I mean, I've lost a little bit of distance over like the last 2 years, and I think it's more because of injury than anything else and getting old. But still, I'm comfortable with the distances I hit. I don't care about that. But yes, like, having an approach shot and you put in it 2 feet from the pin, I think is way more impressive than, that goes a lot farther. Draining it than draining draining a 10-foot putt goes a lot farther than hitting, bomb after bomb. Cause it's like, I mean, look at Bryson, like everybody was all, into it now. And it's just like, then everybody caught up and it's just like, all right, they all do it. What's more impressive to me is the guys that are freaking dropping 60-foot putts.
Well, I was going to say, like, you could hit it, whatever, 310, 320 or however far. And it's like, just like that guy, maybe his irons are crap. So it's like, I don't care if he outdrives me every time. I can poke around this course just fine and shoot way better than him. So it's like, I think a lot of people get in that trap of like, I don't know if it's like a machismo thing or something, but like, I want to hit it really far.
Well, I'm also 6'2", like 200 pounds.
Yeah.
So I'm lanky, so when you do see me, it's like, like I can range from anywhere from like 250 to 290. And then I've had.
Oh, we're the same person. I'm the same height, same weight. Like we're the same person now.
Yeah, I've had those. Listen, there was one time we were in South Carolina. We were in Kiowa, and I absolutely smashed this ball. And when I got to the ball, I measured it was 316. And I think
that's crazy.
The frustrating thing I think the frustrating thing is that it's in there. It's in there. I just did it. Yeah. And it wasn't like it was like 40-mile-an-hour wind to your back. Like, like it was like everything worked out perfectly. And that's like, all right.
Everything worked that time.
How do we tap into that where it's like 80% consistent? You know what I mean? Or whatever. And that's what gets into your head. And that's what I think the hardest part is that, yes, there is a mechanical and technical aspect to the game. Otherwise, we wouldn't get fit for custom club that fit our swing and our body style. But then you've also got that mental game where you get hard on yourself, right? You get super, super hard on yourself because you know what you're capable of and what you're outputting isn't reaching your personal goals, right? Where you're better than that. And that's why, like, I don't know, did you watch the Netflix show, what is it?
Full Swing.
Did you watch that?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I got out of it was I have a new, like, I've always liked Koepka. I've always thought Koepka was a great player. I've always really liked him. And I was upset when his game fell apart due to injury.
I was going to say, were you rooting for him at the Masters?
I was. Even though I'm a Callaway guy, I wanted to see John, but I was hoping Koepka would bring it a little bit more,
Right, make it very competitive at the end there.
Right. And I think it was just like what his biggest problem is he gets inside of his whole head. Like there was that episode where he's talking to, his wife and he's like, yeah, she's talking to me. She's telling me about something. And all I'm
thinking about is winning.
All I'm thinking about is winning. All I'm thinking about is the swing change that I'm making. And all I'm thinking about is if I try this and if I do this. And it's like, so I connected with that tremendously because I'm the exact same person where it's like I could be sitting with my wife or my kids and they're telling me something, but I'm thinking about whatever it is I'm working on or like, I've got to go run outside and try this.
And that's the beautiful thing too, is that this passion that golf brings, because it's like a drug, man. It's like you hit those few good shots every round, even if it's one shot in a round that you hit that's really good. You're like, fuck yeah, I found it.
well, I was at a really nice club down in South Carolina, and I was having the probably the worst game of the season, and it was around the 15th hole. I was literally like, well, let's put it this way: people would give their left, testicle to play this country club, and I was ready to walk off. I'm like, I'm done. I'm finished. I don't want to play this game anymore. I'm done. And the guys were like, Joe, you can't leave. You can't leave. And I literally went on to 16. I took my 5-iron. I'm like, whatever. I don't care. And I put it to 10 feet, birdied that hole.
Yeah, exactly.
And then parred 17 and 18. And they're like, Joe, where was this the whole time? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, this is the problem.
I could tell you where it was. You had too much pressure on you before.
Oh, 100%. And this isn't the first time, because it's a high end like country club that, you know, that I know that the guys that are coming down there, they're scratched, they're +2 handicaps. And it's just like, it gets into my head. And then all of a sudden I just got to let go. And that's what my biggest problem is, letting go. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Well, I could tell, because you were saying, like, on each example you gave when you played really well, both times you said that you just stopped caring and you just played. And it's like, you have the skill. Like, you are a very good golfer. I can tell, not from the swing thoughts you have or anything like that, but that like mindset of like, when I let go, it's there. And it's like, so what's stopping you from letting go, you know? And it's, to me, from what I'm hearing from the one conversation we have, it's these expectations that you have on yourself, you know?
Yeah.
On like what you're supposed to be hitting and doing and all that.
Well, that's why I really felt that connection with Koepka, you know? Like, I have to say, he wasn't one of my favorites. I liked him. I thought he was a great champion, but seeing what's going through his head, I'm like, man, I know what this guy's struggling with. And I know it's good. Like, he puts a tremendous amount of pressure on himself.
He does.
You know, and you could see it. And I do the same thing, whether it's golf or work or, you know, my family. Like, I put that like where it's like, hey, I'm functioning here. I know I should be here. And that's what I do with everything in life. And like, you know, like, you have a boss that, you know, maybe micromanages you, right? I'm that one person. You don't need to micromanage me. I'm already micromanaging myself. You know,
right?
I mean? You're just going to drive me crazy, you know. But I'm already working. I've got you know, I've got this idea of where I should be and what I should be doing already planned out. Please just let me do what I got to do. You know, and I think that's the biggest blocker that I'm sure there's a lot of golfers out there that feel that same type of pressure or put that type of pressure on themselves. So listen, how can the listener get in touch with you too?
Yeah. Great question. So, you can always follow me on Instagram at FeelUnderPar. And really that's where I focus a lot of my attention. I'm also on a couple of those, forums, just, like Golf WRX. I post in there sometimes, and, My Golf Spy. I love those. So if you're ever on there and you come across my stuff, you can see me there. But yeah, at FeelUnderPar. Or you could shoot me an email at Kyle@FeelYour.golf. I'm very much into that. Yeah. So, yeah.
No, that's awesome.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say I'd be really happy to talk to any of you guys out there. Like, I love doing this stuff. So please reach out if you're at least even interested in having a conversation. And you know what? I'll give you a free session if you came from Golf Jitsu. So
awesome. Thank you. See, listener, free session. Feel under par.
Exactly.
Go get a free session. And help take that blockage out of your
noggin.
Yeah. Kyle, thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Joe. No, I appreciate you having me on here. I look forward to it. If you ever want to have me on again, I'm always here. So
listen, we definitely will. Thanks, man.